Hello my friends, and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today's video is one that I'm really excited about. It's single dad romances. I had planned to do a single mom romance video, and then I was just late and I felt like other people had already, covered it, and so I just didn't. But, I don't really care. There's plenty of recommendations out there. There's plenty of different recommendations, and I just wanted to do a single dad romance recommendation video, so that's what I have for you. I think some of these I haven't heard mentioned a whole lot, but they're some of my favorites. I have a good mix here of historical romances and contemporary romances, so hopefully there's a little bit of something for everybody. I absolutely love single parent type of romances because we get to see the other partner who come into the relationship and fall in love with the children too. Like, that's one of my favorite things of all time. I love specifically watching the man really show you how soft and tender he can be with children. Like, it's just a wonderful thing. I love a good dad, and I'm assuming you do too, if you're here watching this video. So, I have some recommendations for you. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's go ahead and get the most popular single dad romance out of the way first. I'm including this as sort of just like a gimme. Most of these I feel like aren't mentioned too often, but this one is always mentioned, and I seriously love this book. It's Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is such a great single dad romance. We have Cade, who, his wife kind of left him to raise his son by himself. He's owning and managing this ranch, so he's really hard at work and he needs somebody to come in and take care of his kid, who is the sweetest little boy in the world. I really loved his character in this book. So he's looking for a nanny, and in comes Willa, who is the heroine from the first book in the series, her best friend, and she just sort of like takes him by storm. And initially he's very attracted to her, but he's like really impressed with her connection with his son. And so he hires her, and then of course they're in that forced proximity. They both catch feelings, they're both very attracted to one another, and I really loved this. I think that this is a book that has so many tropes in it that it could feel over the top, or it could just feel tropes that we've seen before just thrown in here for a quick read, and that there's nothing wrong with those types of books. They're usually not books that I really love. I did feel like Elsie Silver really elevated these tropes and made it just such a great reading experience. The characters felt very real. I felt like their relationship developed really well. I think this book is very spicy, and I would not have liked it for that reason if the emotion wasn't there to back it up, and I felt like it was for sure in here. So that's a really good one. Okay, so now I have a historical for you. It is Up All Night with a Good Duke. This is a really fun and unique historical. So in this book, our heroine Artemis, she is a gothic romance writer, but nobody knows that's what she's doing. She's trying to find a way to get this school set up for young women, but she doesn't have the power or the finances to back it. She ends up meeting the dastardly Duke Dominic, whose wife has passed away, and he now has a 15-year-old daughter that he's raising, and he needs a woman in his life. He needs a wife to raise this daughter, but nobody will marry him because it's rumored that he has killed his wife. So I really loved the background plot of this, that she was a writer, nobody knew about it, and he's going to hire her, to sort of be this prim and proper lady who's going to raise his daughter, not knowing that she writes these novels at night. And, the whole mysterious element of, did he kill his wife? Like, what's happening there? I really liked that. I felt like their romance developed really well, very gradually. I liked the addition of the daughter, and this was just a really fun, unique historical romance. And I do think it's a little rare to find single dad historicals. I do have several more on here as I say that, but I thought this one was a really good one. Okay, so now the next book is sort of like a small town, a little bit of a rom-com. There's no suspense plot on this, and it is The One Who Loves You by Pippa Grant. This was such a sweet, fun read. I enjoyed this so freaking much. The plot is basically our heroine's family, the grandmother, had like a near-death experience. They're very, very wealthy. They live in New York, and because the grandmother had this near-death experience, she's like, okay, that's it. We're gonna go to the country, and we're gonna live normally. We're not gonna live like the rich people we are. And of course, there's grumbling. Nobody wants to do it. They go to this small town. So our heroine's name is Phoebe, and she specifically is not happy to be there. But pretty soon she ends up meeting people in the town, and it's just really pretty adorable. Very heartwarming. I think this book is super heartwarming. But she has a run-in with the single dad in the town whose name is Teague, and he also has a teenage child. And it was just so lovely watching his relationship with his child, and I really loved the way that Phoebe actually bonded with the kid too, and watched how all of those complicated dynamics really sort of drew them together. I just loved this book. I thought it was very cozy, very cute, very sweet, and it was a great single dad romance. Okay, now this one is another historical. It is His Lessons on Love by Kathy Maxwell. This one is pretty unique and pretty fun. The setup is our hero is the Earl of Marsden, known as Mars. He's an earl, right? Yes, I wrote down notes. He basically, you know, is a roguish guy and has lots of mistresses. And then one day his ex-mistress, who he's decided he's going to try and sever ties with, shows up at his door with his baby. And she's like, here you go, you can raise the child. And he's sort of like, what in the world do I do? So he is trying to find somebody to raise this daughter of his, and he ends up enlisting the services of Clarissa, who is pretty much known as like the town spinster. She's very matronly. She has a little bit of a secret in her past that he doesn't know about, and he hires her as a nanny, but he proceeds to tell everyone that they're married, unbeknownst to her. So I think you do have to suspend your disbelief a little bit for this one, but I thought the setup was really sweet, really fun. I really loved watching this man fall in love with his child and this woman. I always find that fun when we have like a playboy type of hero who suddenly finds that this is my child and, oh, I'm going to step up, rise up to the occasion and raise them and love them. I love that so much. And that actually goes hand in hand with the next book I'm going to mention, which is Forever Right Now by Emma Scott. So Emma Scott is really known for her emotional romances. They can be very hard-hitting, they can really give you a gut punch, and I think that this one, while very emotional, I think is less emotionally damaging than some of her other books. I loved this book though. I thought it was so great. It's another contemporary romance, and we have our hero Sawyer, who is just about to finish law school. He's very ambitious. He's worked really hard. He's about to take the bar exam, and he's like, his future is in sight and he's ready for it. But one day, a woman who he had a physical relationship with, I'm not sure if it was a one-night stand, but it was a very brief relationship. She shows up on his door with the child, but she she ends up just abandoning them. Like, she just like leaves the kid with him, and then she like sneaks out, and he has no idea what to do. And I really, really loved watching this hero have this sort of thrown at him when he has all of these ambitions for his career and future. And instead of just sort of like finding a babysitter or a nanny, he embraces his role as a father and really loves this baby and is such a good dad. In fact, the first meeting with the heroine is when they're in like this organic grocery store, like a Whole Foods, and he's trying to find baby food, like organic baby food. Like, he's very determined to take care of his baby girl the best way that he can. I believe she's a baby girl. And the heroine meets him, and she's sort of like swooning at the way that he's taking care of his kid, you know? And it's just so sweet and adorable, and I really, really love that. So our heroine is Darlene, and she's sort of the one who has the hard-hitting background as well, because she has been in jail, she has a history of drug abuse, and she had these aspirations to be a dancer on stage. And she's finally in like rehab, and she's released from all of that, so she's got some good work that she has to do in order to, you know, not go back to jail. And she moves to California to try and finally achieve her dreams of being a dancer. And she finds this apartment that is available by a friend and is right next door to our hero. So they're sort of in forced proximity that way. But there's a lot of obviously drama that's going to happen because the hero doesn't know about her past. And if he did, he would not want her anywhere near his daughter. And she really starts to fall for him, and she doesn't want him to know about her past. And it's very, very sweet, very romantic, and just a really great story. I think that of all of the books that I have on here, like, the thing that I'm most looking for every time I pick up a book is really good storytelling. Like, I want to be immersed in the experience. I don't want to just have a sequence of romantic moments. Like, I want it to be a really well-told story. And I think this one specifically is just really great storytelling. The romance is really wonderful too, but the storytelling aspect of it is fantastic. So I really love that one and highly recommend it. Okay, so now the next one is a novella, and it's actually a holiday novella, but it's so freaking good that I have to include it, and it is Miracle on Ladies' Mile by Joanna Shupe. I've recommended this a lot before. It's very short. I really love it. Honestly, I've been pretty impressed with Joanna Shupe's ability to write a novella in a way that's very satisfying for me, that feels like a complete story arc with a lot of emotional heavy-hitting stuff and not just a steamy time, because I don't really like those. But this one has notes of like Miracle on 34th Street. We have our heroine, her name is Grace. She is trying so hard to make a name for herself as a fashion designer. She gets this job just decorating the windows in this department store, like the you know, they would walk by the street, like, what are those called? Like the windows? I can't think of the word. But she gets this job designing those and putting them together, and she's hoping to work her way up at this department store. And one night she's putting together this display, and in walks a man. He's watching her, and he's very, very struck with her. And he sort of reaches in and saves her from falling when she like steps in something off of this ladder. And it's very, very neat, meet cute. Little does she know that it is Alexander, and he actually owns the department store. He's a widow. He's sort of thrown himself into work after the death of his wife, and he does have a daughter who he's trying to raise but is finding it difficult because she reminds him so much of his wife, and so he keeps her at arm's length. And it's just so good. The daughter plays a minimal role in this, but she does have a role to play. But I just really loved watching these two sort of fall for each other and watching him admire how much she wanted to work and how much she desired to have a career and how hardworking she was. I really loved that about him, and I felt like it was sort of a breath of fresh air because this is like a Gilded Age historical romance, and the attitudes towards women working is much, much different than like a Regency or a Victorian historical romance. So I really loved it. It's so romantic, and I just adore it. And I mean, like, you could of course read it at the holiday season, but you could read it now as well. It's just a great story. It's a really good storytelling. Okay, so now the last book that I have to recommend, and the only book that I have a physical copy of, but it is one of my all-time favorites, is Hookshot by Kennedy Ryan. This is probably one of my top 5 Kennedy Ryan books. This is I can't quite say it's my favorite in the Hoops series because I love Longshot so freaking much. This one is definitely not as heavy hitting, at least it wasn't for me. While it still does have some heavy content in here, it wasn't quite as painful to read as Longshot because of the very graphic depictions of domestic violence in Longshot. This one we still do have some pretty hard-hitting material. Like, we have Keenan, our hero, who is recently divorced. His wife cheated on him. He's dealing with a lot of like emotional baggage and trauma because of that. He's trying to raise his daughter, and his ex-wife kind of like really tries to take advantage of him. He's an NBA player, and he ends up running into Lotus, who we meet, and actually we meet her in Longshot. She's Iris's cousin. And they just feel this connection, this spark, this pull, this attraction. And Lotus has her own set of like history, baggage that she's really trying to work through. And she's very wary of men, not really ready to trust because she's been burned before quite a bit. But eventually Keenan wears her down, and they very gradually but beautifully develop a romance. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. I love so much how much he loves her and everything that he does for her, but also how he doesn't let that overshadow his love for his daughter, and he's still a very active parent. I just loved it so much. I think this is some of Kennedy Ryan's best work, personally. So, all right, there you have it. Those are my recommendations for single dad romances. I love and adore all of these books, and I hope that you do too. And if you have made it this far, please feel free to leave me a blue heart, and I'll see y'all in my next video.